Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. So glad you guys could join us once again. For those tuning in on the simulcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and on X, we're glad you all can be with us. I'm going to bring in our friends over on IG so they can be part of our conversation and replay. And last but certainly not least, going to connect with our friends over on Amazon Live. And I'm really excited about our next guest. Sharon Eubank is joining us today. She's going to talk to us about her new book that's an Amazon bestseller that I think will really reach all of us where we are, but also remind us of the difference we can make no matter where we are. And we're now live on Amazon Live with Cyrus Webb Presents. If you guys are new to us on the Amazon platform, welcome. Make sure you guys do hit that follow button, either here in this corner or down below. You also will see Sharon's new book there. You all can get it not only in print, but also the Kindle edition as well. I want to remind you guys also you can stay connected with Sharon. Sharon, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
I'm so happy to be with you, Cyrus. Thank you.
Look, it is definitely my honor. The book is called Doing Small Things with Great Love. The subtitle of the book is How Everyday Humanitarians Are Changing the World. And you've been able to really lead the charge on this, Sharon, and the work you've been able to do. What has it been like for you to not only to show by example what's possible, but remind all of us of what we can do in life?
Well, I've worked for a large humanitarian organization for almost 30 years, and I've been all over the world, and I've seen a lot of difficult things, and I've seen a lot of beautiful things. But
Mhm.
one of the things that really captured my attention is you don't have to belong to a large NGO or, have a large part of money to be powerful. I've seen
Yeah.
people being powerful in the places where they live without a lot of resource, but they are changing their community. And I thought, if we could have any conversation in this country right now, that's a really great conversation to have. That's why I wrote the book.
I love that. And there's a here in Mississippi where I live, Sharon. When I was reading the book, there's a saying that is very big down here, and it could be in other places too, but I know I hear it here, and that is to think global but act local.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that you've been able to really stress in your work too. A lot of times it can be overwhelming to hear about things that may be happening around the world, but you show in the book how we can be able to start where we are. How important has that been for you to relay to people not only about the difference they can make in the world around them, but also how that's something they can start doing today?
I think one of the most paralyzing ideas is that we're too small or we can't participate in something because it's such a big idea or it's far
Right.
away. One of the ways I learned this was I came home one day and my mother was knitting these bright red slippers, and I said, what are you doing? And she said, well, these are going to go in an airlift to Yugoslavia. It was during the Yugoslavian war when it all broke up. And I didn't say this out loud to my mother, but I thought in my mind, oh my gosh, our little red slippers, knitted by women far away in the United States, is that the best we can do for these
Mm.
people who are in this terrible situation? But several years after that, I read a little story in the New York Times about a woman who was caught in Sarajevo during that time. And she was living in a bombed out building. All the pipes had broken and frozen. It was just miserable. And
Mm.
they'd been, living in that situation for weeks and weeks. And somebody came into the yard and they brought socks, brand new socks that they gave to people. And she said, for me on that day, couldn't change the war, couldn't change my living situation, but I had felt unhuman. And somebody gave me something. They were thinking of me and the need that I had. And putting those new socks on my dirty feet made me feel like I was a human being and someone cared about me. And I realized
Mm.
if you give the right thing at the right time in the right way, that's the humanitarian. You want to make somebody feel like a human being again. And so we can do large things, but in truth, large things are made up of tiny little efforts like that just strung together. And so why wouldn't we work on those small efforts? Because I don't want to be paralyzed by I can't do anything. We can always do things, and hence the title, Small Things with Great Love. It comes from Mother Teresa. You can't beat her. She gives a great quote.
Love that. And I appreciate you sharing that story. You begin the book with that story. And I think it is such a reminder, and a lot of times we don't see the impact of that thing, but the fact that your mother could see what she could do, right? I think that is such a big thing. Miss Queenie, hello to you over there on Facebook. Glad to be able to see you. And I see you guys over there on YouTube as well. I appreciate the hearts. If you all have any questions for Sharon, make sure you guys do put those in the chat. So I was curious in this conversation with you, Sharon. I mean, you're so busy doing. Was it more difficult for you to stop and reflect and to write about it than it has been for you to actually do all the great work you've been able to do?
That's a great question. I collect stories, when I travel. When I meet somebody who has a really compelling story, I try to write it down. But like you said, I'm always busy. And when I went back and looked through that, I tell 92 stories in the book. And they're
Mhm.
not my stories, they're stories of beautiful people who are giving examples of these principles. And it was such a pleasure for me to be able to highlight them. You know, maybe nobody else would ever know their story, but I was a witness to it. And so I
Mhm.
was happy to share those great examples of other people living these principles.
Yeah. And I know it helps people to feel seen, which leads me to the other point I want to talk about that you address in the book, and that is strength in numbers. Again, as you said so well, a lot of times things seem so big for us, they seem so impossible for us individually. How important has it been for you, as you mentioned, like with the organization that you've been able to work with, Sharon? How important has it been for you to show how individuals can come together to make a difference where they are?
I think about some of the examples, some of them are in the book and some of them aren't, but people have an idea. It's a small idea, and you know, they can't really get people to pay attention to it. One of the examples is Vesta Stout. It's World War II. She's working in a Navy, in an ordnance manufacturing place, and her job is to inspect the boxes. And then they get shipped out to soldiers in the field. And her sons are also fighting in the fight. And they keep writing back to their mother saying, when the boxes get damp, the string that you're supposed to pull to open them doesn't work. And now we're clawing at them under fire, trying to get that box open. And so she thought, I'm going to try and fix that. And she started experimenting with cloth and glue. And she made this tape that was super strong and was waterproof. But she couldn't get anybody in the military chain to pay attention to it. She's got this great idea that would solve the problem in the field. So she writes a letter to President Roosevelt, and she said this tape will make a huge difference. And you know, he got it into the supply chain and they had Johnson & Johnson make it. She invented duct tape. And so
Mhm.
here's this beautiful solution that we all use for other things. My nieces are
Right.
making wallets out of duct tape, and we
Mhm.
use it for all kinds of things. But that was a woman who was listening to her sons in the battlefield and saying, I can do something about that. I have this idea, I know that I can. When people have a creative idea like that and they're able to get it into a position where somebody can act on it, and then it takes off. I mean, think of all the things that we use duct tape for because
Right.
of Vesta Stout that was, you know, 70 years ago. So I
Yeah.
love an example like that that shows somebody with a small idea that we're able to get people to engage with it. It went all over the world.
Yeah. I love that. Midnight Ace Book Bar, hello to you over there on Facebook. Glad you could be able to join us. And for those of you on Amazon, appreciate you all being with us too. I'll reset real quickly, Sharon, let our audience know. For those who are just tuning in, welcome. You're watching Cyrus Webb Presents. Excited to welcome Sharon Eubank to our broadcast today. She's the author of the brand new book that's already an Amazon bestseller. It's called Doing Small Things with Great Love. We're going to talk to her about the latter part of that title here in a bit. The subtitle, though, is How Everyday Humanitarians Are Changing the World. And I love the fact that you help us to understand in the book, Sharon, that all of us can be humanitarians. We don't have to go to another country to be able to do that. All of us where we are can be able to do that. I want to talk about, though, the title, Doing Small Things with Great Love, because we talked about, again, some of the examples, like with your mother and the socks, and what you just mentioned with what ended up becoming duct tape. How important has love been for this? Because I can imagine in your line of work, you've seen so much, and you even share some of those stories in the book. Not everything is going to be a joyous experience,
Yeah.
but how is your love in the process, Sharon? How's that kind of kept you sustained even through the challenging times?
Everybody knows about Mother Teresa. She was a great humanitarian. She spent her whole career as a Catholic nun in India. And she was helping people who were in the very last stages of their life. And she couldn't change the fact that they were going to die. But she would wash them, she would sit with them, she would write their last letters, and she would make sure that they weren't alone when they. And I think for me, there's something really beautiful when she says, we can't all do great things, but we can do small things with great love. And it's that idea that the way we feel about the work we're doing might be the most important piece. We transmit the dignity and the honor to somebody who was in the lowest caste of society. And we're not all in that same situation of Mother Teresa, but when it comes down to it, there's really only two choices in this world. You're either doing things for your own benefit or you're turning outward to benefit other people. And I want to be on that other side. I'm not good at it and I make mistakes all the time, but I want my acts on this earth to be infused with dignity and acceptance of other people and love versus something that's selfish about myself.
Well, I appreciate the modesty, Sharon, and your saying you're not good at it. However, we do see some of the early praise that's in the beginning of the book. You have been able to make an impact in the lives of some others. You've made others feel seen. Is that something that is easy for you to sit with when people tell you about how your example has inspired them?
My examples are pretty small compared to some of the other examples of what people are doing. And the most exciting part to me is somebody who doesn't even think they have a story, and to be able to watch what they've done and then tell their story. I love the network of people that are doing good. And one of the reasons I put prompts in the back of the book is we all want to start. We just sometimes don't know where to start. And it's as easy as just asking some sincere questions and really listening to the answers, to the mayor or to the principal of your school, or to the people in your community. It's not hard to start. You just have to ask some questions.
You're saying that, Sharon, reminded me of something else that's in the book, and that is a lot of times it's so easy for us to focus on the problem. And as you just gave in these great examples, including with your mother, individuals looking for the solution. Talk to us about that, because that goes to something that I don't think, talk enough about, but is so important. And I thought about it with some of the examples in the book, and that is our mindset. Talk to us about the importance of our mindset when approaching problems that can really help us.
I have a really good example in my family. During the Depression in the United States, my great grandparents had homesteaded a wheat ranch up in Montana. So they have 1,000 acres that they have to improve. And so they built a house. They had a little store in town, and my great grandfather was out picking rocks and trying to improve that. And he got rheumatic fever and he died. And so Agnes picks up her two boys. It's the middle of the Depression. She can't farm that. There's a drought going on. She moves in with her sisters in California. And she doesn't have any income coming in except for the paper route that her son Bill is going out. And there's a bakery that pays him every day in donuts. So he brings donuts back to the house, but that's the only money. And she's worried about nutrition for those boys. So she makes the rounds of the agencies around there, and she's trying to get milk or a little bit of help. And they all tell her, look, you have all that land in Montana. You sell that land and then we'll help you. But there's lots of people who need help, and they don't have any land to sell. So you don't qualify, without ever looking at the long-term idea of, if she can make it through the next couple years of the Depression, that land in Montana will sustain her family for a long, long time. That's the root solution to what they're going to need, not to be on food aid all the time. But one morning they walked outside, and on their porch was a case of canned milk. And there was a little tag just saying, from the Salvation Army. They had responded to her without requiring anything. And it's one of the aspects of the Salvation Army I still appreciate today. They are focused on long-term solutions. What's the root cause and what's the long-term solution? And the long-term solution wasn't her to sell that land so that she could buy milk. The long-term solution was to help her bridge where she was so that she could use the assets that she had for her family. And I'm the fourth generation of that family. And that land in Montana sustained us for 100 years. But it took somebody with the little vision to be able to say, okay, I get where you are. You need a little bit of help, and then you're okay on your own again. And that ability to see what the real problem is sometimes lacking. We require these things because of policy or because of rules or because we think it's the right thing for them to do, without really investigating. Everybody's situation is different. And I was really grateful that the Salvation Army saw that in my own family.
Love that. And thank you for sharing that story, Sharon. It goes to something else you talk about in the book, and that all of us have something to offer. I know a lot of times, again, we think that I don't have, what's necessary. But a lot of times it begins with just that attitude of, I want to help, or I want to make a difference, or I want to do good. What would you say to our audience about that, especially if they reflect on the title of the book, Doing Small Things with Great Love, but also thinking about what they can do for themselves? What do you hope the book does for them in helping them in that?
I'll have to reflect a little bit on that. So often people say, I'm too young, or I'm too old, or I'm not rich. They have a category that they can't help. And
Right.
I'm motivated by that story in Boca Raton, Florida. There was a boy, a 15, 16-year-old boy named Dennis Esteman. He was a Haitian immigrant, and he came to Boca High. And, it was hard for him to kind of fit into his society, but he finally did. And then he looked around at lunchtime and he saw people sitting alone, and he remembered what it felt like to sit alone. And so he got some of his friends, and they started a thing called We Dine Together. They just went around during the 45 minutes of lunch, and they would sit and chat with somebody who wasn't talking to anybody at lunch.
Yeah.
Simple solution, doesn't cost any money. But think about these, you know, more popular kids in your high school, and I don't know how you felt
Mhm.
about your cafeteria, but I know what mine felt like, and that they would
Right.
just sit and visit with people. And that's enriching to the Haitian immigrant Dennis, who came and he was able to start something nationally. But it was amazing for every person that they spoke to during lunch. And I just
Yeah.
like that idea that we can do more. I mean, that idea of dining together, we dine together, we need that in our country right now. We're so polarized in so many ways, and we're all sitting alone by ourselves. We need somebody who has the confidence to be able to sit by us and say, we might not be the same, but I want to get to know you. And Dennis is a good example of that.
Mm. And your book is full of those examples, really, Sharon, I think in so many ways, and reminders of, again, what we can all do. You mentioned something interesting, and of course, I'm a optimistic person by nature. Sharon, my audience knows that, but there are a lot of people though that they're feeling so uncertain these days about us being able to work together, come together, to do things together. What is it that keeps you optimistic? What is it that keeps you going, even in spite of the challenges you see around you?
All change starts with individuals, working in their local place where they live. And that first principle of the book of you are most powerful where you live, we
Hmm.
give lip service to that, but we often think I have to go to Peru or I have to do something where they need
Yes.
me more. I
Right.
don't believe that after 30 years. I believe we're most powerful where we live because we speak the language, because we understand the culture, because we know the people, we have a network. And so if that's true, if it's really true, then I would love for us to use our voices, start asking questions, figuring out what's going on right on the street where I live. We see a photo in the newspaper about a bombed out something, and we think, oh, that's so terrible where that is. There are people that live on your own street whose interior has been bombed out like that, and you don't know it. And it
Yeah.
just takes finding out a little bit, asking some basic questions. I know we're polarized. I know we're insecure. The only way to get past that is to connect with people on a human level. And it doesn't matter that we don't vote the same, we don't look the same, we don't worship the same. Those aren't the important things. The important things are we live here and we want this neighborhood to thrive. So what can we do?
Yeah, I love that. It all begins with us and a personal decision for sure. Again, everyone, Sharon Eubank has been our guest. Her new book, again, is called Doing Small Things with Great Love. The subtitle is How Everyday Humanitarians Are Changing the World. And again, that includes all of us. The book's available here on Amazon. You all can get it and highlight it again for you guys. You can get it in print, or you can maybe get the Kindle edition as well. The Kindle edition right now on Amazon is 60% off. You can get it for only $9.99. Sharon, I really appreciate you stopping by. How can our audience stay connected with you?
You can reach me, Sharon Eubank _ on Instagram, Shadow Mountain Publishing, Deseret Book, Amazon, all have the book. But I'd love to stay in touch because the conversation is the most important thing.
Such a great thing. And we love a great conversation. You've definitely given us that today, Sharon. Looking forward to our next chat together, Sharon.
Thanks so much.
More than welcome. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, you all make it a great one. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.